Good morning. Today is the first day of the second Adar, the Adar in which we celebrate Purim in 14 days in Yerushalayim, 13 days outside of Jerusalem, and it's also Rosh Chodesh. Yesterday it was also Rosh Chodesh. I neglected to mention that, and it is the 11th of March, and we're going to look at the second reading of Pekudei. Now you might think, and actually I was warned about this, and I warned myself. And it's a big issue, of course. How in the world am I going to talk about Pekudei after we already talked about the Tzaveh? They're almost the same, except one is the commandment to do, and the other is the execution of the commandment. So what is there to say that's new? But there's always an infinite amount of stuff to say that's new. We're never at a loss. It just takes a little bit of thought, and there's plenty of stuff. So today we're going to be looking at a very interesting idea. Usually we say that when there are two opinions, they contradict. Most of the time when there are two opinions, for instance, the Academy of Hillel, the Academy of Shammai, one says you light the candles on Hanukkah from 1 to 8. That's Hillel's opinion. Shammai says from 8 to 1. We actually talked about a way to get around this, but you can't do it at the same time. So you have to do it one after another. So you light from 1 to 8, and then from 8 to 1. So that's a trick. You can do Hanukkah for 15 days. And there's a reason for it. But that notwithstanding, usually when there is a dispute, you cannot do both things. You can only do one or the other. But that's not always the case. There are some disputes in which both can be done. It just has to be understood how they complement one another and how you can actually do them together. What we're going to look at is a beautiful, beautiful way of understanding the sages and how they think. So let's get to it. So on this verse, we said it's Exodus 39:13. It's just describing the breastplate. And verse 13 says, the fourth row had, the stones were an aquamarine, an onyx, and a jasper. They were mounted so as to be encased in settings of gold. So we're going to be looking at the symbolism behind these stones. The onyx and the jasper. Okay, and in Hebrew they are shoam and yashfeh. So let's look at an interesting passage in the Talmud regarding the two of the stones, these two stones. And the passage says like this: the discussion is set against the descriptions of the future glory and beauty of Jerusalem in the time of redemption. And the Talmud reads this. The verse reads, and I will make your towers of kodkod, meaning your gates of previous stones, the whole of your encircling wall of gems. This is a verse from Isaiah 54:12. Let me read it again because it might not have been clear. And I will make your towers, it's talking about Jerusalem, of kodkod. What is kodkod? Kodkod, we don't know what this word is. Even the sages are a little bemuzzled by this word. What does it mean? The continuation of the verse is, your gates of stones, the whole of your encircling wall of gems. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani said, two angels in heaven, Gabriel and Michael, disagree with regard to the material that will be used to form the walls of Jerusalem. There is a dispute among the angels. What is it going to be like? Obviously, I don't know if anybody heard this dispute. What it really is an echoing of a dispute down here that was understood to be a dispute also in heaven. This is very common in the Talmud, that when two sages disagree, we say the source of their disagreement is in the supernal realm. It's not just below. One said, they will be made of onyx, meaning the walls, right? What will the walls be made out of? They'll be made out of onyx. And one said of jasper. So even that you already understand is not really the discussion, because there isn't enough onyx in the world probably to make walls for all of Jerusalem, and certainly not of jasper. So these stones, they represent something. And when we say to make the walls of Jerusalem out of something, we mean that they're going to be made out of what these stones represent. But let's finish what it says. The Holy Blessed One said, God said to them, let it be like this and like that. Meaning, we'll make it out of both of them, onyx and jasper, not just one or the other. And then like this or like that, when you say it in Hebrew, or it's a variant of Aramaic, it's kedain uchedain. And so the sages say, that's this word that we didn't know, kod. Kad, kod, kadein, kadein. It's supposed to be the same thing. It sounds the same. It's a isomorphism in terms of the phonetics. That's the idea. Meaning we'll do it like this and like that. A combination. So the first thing to see is that the phrase, let it be like this and like that, is very similar. It sounds in the beginning just like the phrase, these and these are the words of the living God. But despite their similarity, they mean two different things. These and these is not meant to be applied practically. You can't apply these and these practically. The practical decision follows one of the opinions when you say these and these. Only above is it possible for both opinions to exist. But here below we have to decide to do one or the other. We can't do both. So when it says these and these are the words of the living God, what we mean to say is, in the supernal realm they can exist together. In our physical reality, we have to decide on one or the other. But the phrase, let it be like this and like that, kedain ukedain, indicates a state in which both options can be exercised in practice. Even though at first the two options may seem to contradict one another, and this is what it may seem in the beginning. Maybe onyx and jasper don't even mesh together. I don't know, maybe you can't really, put them together into a wall. Or like we said, there's probably not enough of them in the world to do this. So even though it may seem that they contradict, they can really be done together. This is the direction which the Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, interprets the options. Onyx and jasper. Each indicates a form of divine service, and both forms can be maintained together, and that is what the walls of Jerusalem are made out of. It's a symbol, obviously, because we're talking about a prophecy. And a prophecy is always describing something that needs to be interpreted symbolically, especially of the latter prophets. In the book of Samuel, in the book of Kings, there are things that are literal, but the prophets, the minor prophets, and the latter prophets, they're all talking symbolically. That's what their prophecies were, and we have to unravel them. We have to figure out what the symbolism means. So how do we do this? Well, what stones are we talking about? We said onyx and jasper. So we need to know that onyx is a stone representing Joseph, and jasper represents Benjamin. And in Kabbalah, the two brothers are referred to as the higher tzaddik and the lower tzaddik. And what does that mean? Joseph and onyx represent what is known as direct godly revelation, a state in which God reveals himself to the individual from above to below. This is known as direct light, or direct revelation of godliness. So that's what the onyx stands for. It's God revealing himself from above to below without our work. Benjamin and jasper represent the ascent of the individual towards God. It thus is known as reflected light, from below to above. We ascend because of something that God does to us, our life in the world. Sometimes it's tragedy that happens to us. Whatever it is that causes us to seek an ascent, that's called reflected light. It's the ascent of the kingdom, of the sphere of kingdom, of Malchus. So, returning to the Talmud, there is a dispute between the two angels, or two Talmudic sages, and even the Talmud tells us, some say that this dispute is between two sages in the land of Israel, Yehuda and Chizkiah, the sons of Rabbi Chia. And they were discussing what type of service will be performed in the future Jerusalem. What will it be like? Will it be that we will sit and enjoy the divine revelation that will come down by itself? Or is there still room for our actions that elevate us? What is the future Jerusalem going to look like? And again, Jerusalem itself is a symbol. Obviously, the symbol has some connection to reality, because you can't build Jerusalem in Washington, even though The spiritual Jerusalem can be built in Washington, but the physical Jerusalem has a precise location in the world. But still, it has a symbolic meaning. So what is it going to be built out of? And one says it will be the service of receiving God's direct revelation, and the other says it will be the service of ascent from below to above to godliness. In practice, both are needed. Each type of service has its benefits. So let's give an example. An example is that the sages say that a maidservant on the Red Sea saw what the prophet Ezekiel could not see, meaning the lowest of the lowly of the Israelites was able to see a divine revelation that Ezekiel the prophet, and we choose Ezekiel because Ezekiel is known as the one who sees. Of all the prophets, he's the one who sees the most, even more than Moses in some senses, even considered to be a reincarnation of Moses, because he's the architect, he's the one who sees things. So a maidservant on the Red Sea, after the parting of the Red Sea, saw more than he could see. But notice what the sages said, a maidservant. They don't say a maidservant turned prophetess. She didn't become a prophet because all she received was direct light. And all that direct light does is it's God coming down, and he can do anything he wants. He can even make the lowest of the low see something that's greater than what Ezekiel can see. That's direct light. But what about the reflected light? Reflected light is about refinement. It is about our work, our pushing ourselves to elevate. That seems to be of some superior value than God just coming down. But the truth is that both are needed. You can't really live without both of them. There's a famous story that one time the Alter Rebbe told his grandson, the Tzemach Tzedek, here, I'll give you many, many levels of holiness now in one shot. And the Tzemach Tzedek said no. He wanted to refine himself from himself. He wanted to do the work himself. Later he said, after a number of years, that he regretted that he had not received it back then. He said, even if I would have received many levels, there's still many more levels after that. There's still a lot of work to do. It's not like I've finished. So really both are needed. And the modern application of this and all that it entails is something that you'll have to look up in the article in Wonders, and you can go to Patreon. Hopefully it should be there in a short time, about 10 minutes. And that's it for today. Hope to see you tomorrow.